High fantasy takes many forms, from the epic to the gritty to the cute cartoon bears. Why don't we throw some Spekivo that way? Hello everyone! Adventures of the Gummy Bears is an 80s animated show about these medieval fantasy bears that go around and do stuff and face evil. I guess. Not gonna lie, this might be the cutest thing I've done on the channel so far. So why don't we get to the speculation and world building and stuff? And what if, bear with me, you liked, hyped and subscribed to support the channel? That would be very cool of you. And now, without further ado, let's get started. Despite the noblest intentions of most sapient beings inhabiting this world, war tends to make its way to those who least look for it. And sometimes, as is the case of today's subject, it seems only distance can bring peace to those who look for it. While for long their secluded existence cast a lot of doubt on their nature, Comarctos hexadactyla are now understood to belong to subfamily Orsinae, having diverged early before other bear species. The ancestors of the gummy bears retained the omnivorous diet of their relatives, and presented an anatomical and behavioral adaptation that helped them hunt despite their relatively smaller size. These bears are capable of using vocal mimicry to attract prey, and as such, have very refined vocal tracts and cords. Like most bears, their great strength and claws make them very adept at digging, which they use to form large underground galleries inhabited by large family groups. Most of the time, however, they would hunt among the branches of trees, and the well-developed innermost digits of their paws make them great at climbing, with a short projection of the wrist, similar to that presented by pandas, giving them greater grip when climbing and feeding. These characteristics have led to the theory of common ancestry between them and the panzerbjörn of Svalbard, species in which they are also present. Their coloration, unlike that of most bear species, tends to vary a lot between individuals. While seasonal variation and age are an important factor in fur coloration, the expansion of these bears across the Eurasian region led to different phenotypes being formed across their distribution. Their wide vocal range gave them the capacity to share information between them, as well as increasingly complex ideas, giving rise to sapiency and a fully formed language. As they did, their dexterous hands gave them the ability to put this intelligence and ideas to use, so technological and cultural growth came soon after. As they did, they retained their underground homes, now greatly expanded and reinforced with wood, giving them much more space for common areas and individual bears' rooms. The above-ground portion of these homes would usually be built into and around a tree, giving the bears a quick way to reach the treetops for mobility and surveillance reasons. As their distribution grew and they found new vegetable sources of food, mainly berries and fruits, their agricultural practices developed a lot, allowing them to grow these both above ground among the branches of their trees and underground in secure rooms with skylights that allowed the sunlight in. Thanks to the availability of these resources, the gummy bears soon began experimenting and creating refined concoctions made from plants found in their environment, particularly the ones that produce the so-called gummy berries. In fact, these berries, highly nutritious and full of useful properties, were considered by the bears as a gift of nature, and would be the origin of the name of their civilization. By carefully combining different types of gummy berries, processing them through fire, mortar and pestle, and other natural substances they found in their environment, the gummy bears were capable of preparing concoctions with a wide variety of effects, creating a diversity of preparations that included medicine, food and additives, building and scientific materials, and even weaponry. Most of this knowledge, as well as the wisdom, customs and laws of the past, would be recorded in large volumes to be passed and expanded from generation to generation, with one of the most famous of these being the Great Book of Gummy. Hey, were these guys good at branding or what? However, after contact and conflict with other species began, the Gummy Bears would begin hiding this knowledge behind ciphers and codes that could only be broken through the use of a three-way deciphering tool, usually a medallion, which would be entrusted to the elder of the group. Even then, as it would turn out, not all who tried the potions contained within these books would be able to use them. The gummy berries, despite their high nutritional value, contain traces of toxic compounds, which would be concentrated and amplified as the berries were processed. After not only lifelong consumption of these berries, but also an evolutionary adaptation to eating them given by a particular microbiota, the gummy bears had developed an immunity to these compounds, but the same could not be said of other sapient species. There are well-known cases of humans and members of other species attempting to steal this book, only to be harmed by their attempts at carrying out the recipes contained within them. One of the most regarded of these concoctions was that which the bears know as gummy berry juice, a nondescriptive name that was used to conceal its usefulness. This juice, like most they made, was prepared by carefully mixing and cooking different proportions of specific berries found in their habitat. Upon being consumed, the juice would induce an immediate circulatory and hormonal response that would cause the skin and muscle of the bears to tighten, while simultaneously increasing circulation to their internal layer of blubber, causing it to expand and harden. This layer of blubber would turn into a powerful shield, protecting the internal organs of the bears from strikes, both from predators and weaponry, that would be extremely harmful otherwise. It made them, in fact, capable of even resisting falls from great heights without a scratch, a valuable asset for creatures used to traveling the trees. When in this state, the bears are even capable of bouncing around by using their body fat as a shock-absorbing cushion, moving in a manner similar to the galumphing of seals. Still, while the effects of this potion are well known and rather consistent in bears, this is not the case for all sapient beings, owing to differences in metabolism, body mass composition, and the aforementioned toxin immunity. In humans and other sapient beings, consumption of the juice may merely cause an immediate release of adrenaline, resulting from a sudden burst of energy and its high caloric content, making users feel stronger and more capable for a bit. This is all, of course, when the juice is prepared appropriately, as careless or incorrect preparations may cause harmful effects on the body of the user. For instance, it may react poorly to the body's biochemistry, producing huge amounts of gas that, depending on the inner biology of the user, can accumulate and cause a degree of buoyancy. In other cases, the preparation may even explode before it has a chance to be consumed. Furthermore, while the dietary habits of the bears may protect them from the trace toxins found in the berries, repeated consumption by other sapiens may lead to unexpected side effects, including dizziness, fatigue, and cardiac issues, although these effects diminish as the body mass of the user increases, with some species, like ogres, handling it much better than human beings. Sadly, as the aforementioned conflicts worsened over time, the gummy bears found themselves facing some of the more aggressive species in their world, and the weapons of the latter turned out to have a great advantage over the potions of the bears. Despite their generally peaceful habits, the gummy bears were heavily attacked, causing most groups to migrate into more isolated regions where they could live in peace. Contact with the species is still limited, and we can only hope the future may bring a reinitiation of diplomatic relations with them. And that's it for Speculative Biology look into gummy bears. I wasn't really familiar with these bears before doing the research for the episode, but once I began reading on them, and thanks to the notes by Phineas Nash who commissioned this episode, I found the idea of them being part of a fantasy world, along with our other fantasy species, to be a very fun thing to try doing, with the original lore being surprisingly easy to fit into such a place. Now, these are, for the most part, just sapient bears, and it was fun coming up with how they could have come into this lifestyle. playing it differently from other sapiens, with the berries and their use for magic purposes giving us a good hook around which to world build, especially given the constant conflict that is forced upon them in the show and the way they hid away from humanity. So, as always, here's a thank you to the one other person who wanted to see this episode. Here's to you! And also, thank you to our researchers and research associates who support us through Patreon and YouTube memberships. And again, big thanks to Phineas for sponsoring this one. Remember, you too can join in if you want to support our channel, and you get some nice perks too, like seeing all of our creatures and videos ahead of time and helping mold them into shape. Or you can also like, subscribe, or write a comment telling me any type of creature you would like me to give the Spekibo treatment in the show. Any of those will help the channel a lot. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time on the Speculative Wildlife Research Center.